Want to understand why your child and people around you behave the way they do, want to be able to respond to emotionally heated situations calmly or with a level of emotional detachment, want to know how to make others behave the way you want, particularly your children, then you need to learn to see behavior like a behavioral scientist. And in this video, I'm going to teach you just that. Learning what I'm about to teach you can help you respond with reservation and will help you know how to react to situations because you will understand why these are happening in the first place. I am El Descarano, a parenting coach and behavior specialist with over 2 decades of experience working with families. I hold a bachelor's degree in psychology with a focus on child and adolescent development and a Texas state teaching license, and I'm the author of a parenting guide called Guiding Little Minds. What is behavior? Behavior is anything you can see or hear. It can be walking, talking, eating, getting dressed, playing, smiling, or crying. It has to be something specific and measurable. So sadness is not a behavior, but crying is a behavior because you can measure it with time. Behaviors always have a purpose. Try to remember this. Behaviors always have a purpose, and humans are less complicated than we think. Our behaviors only have 4 purposes: to get attention, to avoid or escape something, to access things, or to get sensory relief. And what I mean here is to relieve hunger, thirst, cold, pain, things like that. Now, when your child cries, whines, or throws a fit, you now know that he or she is trying to get attention, avoid or escape something, get access to things, or get sensory relief. And remember, behavior is a science. Anyone can learn the steps to shape and respond to behavior. Also, behavior always has a pattern, and it's called the ABC pattern that I will teach you in a minute. But before I teach you the ABC pattern of behavior, I will explain what the A and the C in the ABC mean. And you just learn what the B means. It means behavior. Some of you may be saying, "Oh, Elda, you're saying that everybody needs attention, but what about love?" Well, think about when you give someone attention. You're showing them love. When you cook for someone, take them on a date, when you bathe your children, when you read to them, when you hold them, you are giving them your attention. The A in the ABC pattern stands for antecedent, and it's what happens right before a behavior. And antecedents are the environment, but they're much more than a place. Like in this example, we see the children are smiling. That is the behavior that they're showing, and behaviors are responses to our environment or their antecedents. Their antecedents in this case are not just the park, they are the people around them, the routines, the expectations, the interactions, the noise, the temperature, the time of day, and even the age of the children. In your home, the antecedents can be the setup of your home, the safety, the cleanliness, the routines, and the expectations. C in the ABC pattern stands for consequences, and consequences are very misunderstood. People think they are punishments, but they are whatever happens right after a behavior, and they are also part of the environment. Consequences change how likely a behavior is to occur in the future. And check out the image of this baby crying because I will continue to explain consequences based on this image on the next slide. I told you that all behaviors follow the ABC pattern. This pattern in behavioral psychology helps us understand behaviors, and also by disrupting the pattern, we can shape or modify behaviors, and I'm going to show you how. The first step is to observe and define a behavior with simple words, and I'm going to use the baby's image as an example. So I'm going to define the baby's behavior as crying, and remember, it has to be measurable. So let's say this baby's been crying for 5 minutes, and I want to eliminate or shape this behavior. So the next thing you do is try to figure out the behavior's function. And remember, there's only 4 functions to a behavior. The baby may be crying because he wants attention, access to things, he wants to escape or avoid something, or he wants sensory relief. So what you do is you adjust the environment or the consequences to eliminate or shape this behavior. In this case, we're going to work with the environment, which is what I do for a living. I adjust the environment using systems and routines to try to eliminate behaviors. So, mom figured out that the pattern of this behavior was that every 4 hours, this baby would start crying. And when she picked up the baby, she would realize the baby had a dirty diaper that she hadn't changed. Now, the mom can set up a routine where she checks on the baby, let's say every 2 hours or every hour, and makes sure to change the diaper at least before the 4 hours. And by doing this, the baby will stop crying because he will never be wet enough or wet for long enough that that the mom needs to change him and that he needs to cry. And this way, the behavior will be eliminated. When you don't prevent behaviors, like in the case of the image, the baby was already crying, then you need to adjust your consequences to increase or decrease a behavior depending on what you want. In this case of the image, the baby cried for 5 minutes and mom picked him up and changed his diaper. The consequence was that the mom picked him up and changed his diaper. Now the baby knows that every time he cries, he will obtain attention and sensory relief. So this behavior is very likely to occur, which if you want this behavior to occur, that's great. But let's say we don't want this behavior to occur. In that case, if the baby starts crying, then mom doesn't pay attention to the baby and doesn't change him. After a few times of this, the baby realizes that the crying does nothing for him. He didn't obtain any attention or any sensory relief, and the behavior will likely decrease. This baby will stop crying even though he's soiled. Now, this is neglect, and we don't want to do that. This will result in the baby becoming an adult who suffers from depression and anxiety, and at the very least, he has trust and intimacy issues and conflict patterns in his relationships, and he won't even know why, because this is the result of something that happened when he was 0 to 3 years old. And that's why we need great parents to take care of babies. ABC pattern or ABC model is at the core of my guide, Guiding Little Minds, because any parent can use science and leadership skills to parent well. I talked about how to acquire leadership skills in my last video if you want to watch it, and all this information and more is in my guide, Guiding Little Minds, that you can grab in Amazon or Amazon Kindle. My guide focuses on modifying your home's environment and your responses to shape behavior. Don't settle for quick solutions. Some parents tell me that it takes time to set up their home a certain way or teach their children how to follow expectations and routines. But in reality, it takes less time than the time you already spend yelling, repeating instructions that nobody listens, and doing things for your children. Small changes to your child's environment can have such a big and positive impact in your family life. As a tip, recording your child's behavior without them knowing can help you find behavior patterns more easily. If you have any questions, I know this was a lot of information, you can message me, or if you need hands-on help and you're in the Austin area, you can email me at guidinglittleminds.help@gmail.com. And there you have it, how to understand behavior like a scientist so you can influence it or shape it. Thank you for listening. I'm Elda Scarano. See you next time.